Thank you so much for tuning in. Make sure you are subscribed to the Substack DaftOnDraft.football, where you will get access to all of these charts on Google Drive for every quarterback in the class, access to insider information on the Discord channel, film rooms every single week, live chartings every single week, big boards, positional rankings, more and more. So make sure you are tuned in.
Welcome to the NFL Draft.
Welcome back into another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast presented by FanDuel. As always, Corey Kinnan and James Foster's back. He did not die. James is here after a week of recovery. James, how are you feeling, my friend?
I'm strengthening my immune system for Shrine Bowl. That's what I'm telling myself. I got my flu shot. Hopefully we're good to go.
Yeah,
I got sick for the Senior Bowl last year, which was the one time I got sick last year was Senior Bowl, which was really frustrating. But back and healthy, and it was a pretty awesome second round of the college football playoff. Ready to break it down.
Yeah, especially this last game. Again, James and I are recording this at 12:15 ET my time and 11:15 p.m. his time, so that we had a chance to have all four of these games watched. And we are doing an instant reaction episode, so we're not doing a film breakdown. Again, we don't. The only film that's out right now is the Ohio State Miami game, so we haven't had a chance to digest it. We are just firing from the hip here on this one. So I think that should be a lot of fun. And so we're gonna roll right into this thing. Let's start with obviously Ohio State Miami, which was the New Year's Eve game. Ohio State by FanDuel was 9.5-point favorites in this game, and they lose by 10. And honestly, probably should have lost by 17. To be honest, the game probably should have been a 3-score game. They got built to ass in this game. So James, what were some of your bigger takeaways from watching this game here?
Yeah, I think that I found myself thinking back to Ethan Onion's NIL deal this offseason a lot during this game, when I would see Ruben Bain just running the arc effortlessly, Akeem Mesidor wreaking havoc, Ahmad Moten had some great pass rush reps that I noticed. Obviously, we haven't broken down the tape, but just like the missed recruiting battles, they missed out on David Sanders, inability to really recruit O-line at the same level that they have other positions. I think that really showed up. And then the inexplicable kind of Ryan Day games that we get occasionally. And then I think inversely, Miami has done the opposite. They've done an outstanding job building through the trenches. Mentioned the defensive front, but Francis Mauanoa had an awesome game. And I mean, they have I like them really at every position. I think linebackers probably average, but they played great in this game. Basanti, they're not really high level prospects, but played really well. So yeah, I think it was a pretty clean, dominant win from Miami. And I do like that all four teams in the Final Four, if they win the championship, it'll either be their first championship ever or their first in, a really long time. It'll be a major accomplishment for their program. It won't just be another ring. So that'll be fun, like it for the Miami program.
Yeah, this was the only game that I solo potted on, that would have been Tuesday night, going over previewing these games, and this was the only game that I got incorrect. And honestly, this was the one I was like, you know what, this one's the only one that's going to be a 2-score game, and the rest were except for the Ole Miss Georgia game, but the rest were blowouts. So the only one I missed, but yeah, Austin Searveld got hurt in this game, but even before he went out, was not a pretty performance by Austin Searveld at left tackle. Again, the dream scenario for me with Austin Searveld is that Ohio State transfers in a left tackle and he can play guard next year. Get a year of film at guard on, because you're clearly a guard. Everybody knows you're a guard. Play guard. So I'm hoping that does happen, that they do land somebody in the portal. The Ruben Bain thing, man. So the conversation around him has become so volatile because of the sub 31-inch arms. The explosiveness has looked back a little bit here. And obviously he's unbelievably dominant. And then even against the right tackle, Philip Daniels, who I think we're going to talk a lot about Philip Daniels next year's draft, right tackle for Ohio State. There were some pretty impressive, inverted bend reps like some pretty impressive bend reps getting around the outside shoulder there as well from Bane at 277. So, do you think Bane is an outlier? Like, do we still need to talk about the arm length? Is like, can this guy ever? Can this is this guy going to be able to corner at the NFL level?
So I don't as much worry about cornering. I think there will be reps if we're talking about him as an edge rusher in the NFL. There will be reps with, quick jump sets, double punches where tackles are able to get hands on early and kind of shut him down for reps. I think that will happen. So he's going to have to develop really quick reactive counters. But ultimately, I think that being skilled and well timed with your hands are a lot more important is a lot more important than having arm length specifically for a pass rusher. I would worry more about it in the run game if his run defense tape wasn't just so outstanding. Um, and for me, like I still view him as an edge. I know that he's viewed a lot as an interior by NFL teams, and I think like on passing downs, it could be best suited that you line him up on the inside, but he's really small to play three tech in the NFL, like at 277, and not really a frame that is going to add a ton of good weight. So I don't know that I'm all the way there with moving him inside. I'm still kind of like going to end up 12 to 15 range with him probably in edge one.
Same. I dropped my big board 3 weeks ago now. My top 15, he was 19. Obviously, I've seen a little bit more back on this tape than I had kind of the middle part of the season.
Right.
So that's worth reevaluating as well, and he'll probably get some bumps up there. So I would say I'd probably end up in that 12 to 15 range as well. And we'll see if he tests at the combine. These guys really rarely do these days, but I hope some of these guys still go out there and do it. But last probably second to last talking point here before we talk about maybe a 2029 quarterback that people thought was a 27 quarterback. But we got to bring back the Arvell Reese thing, and obviously, like, he's built like an alien, and he's alien like athletic. But like, at what point do we start saying, is there a reason that Ohio State's just having this guy spy and trigger and not really stacking at the second level into run fits and not really backpedaling in coverage? Like, at what point does the evidence just become too overwhelming to say, like, maybe this guy is more positionless than we think he is?
Yeah, it's after a few weeks, my attention sort of goes to the usage from the coaching staff. Like, come on, why aren't you guys using him in this way? And then, after like 5 to 6 weeks, it's like, okay, maybe he doesn't have as deep of a skill set as maybe we initially projected. I still think that if their main goal was to showcase him for the NFL draft, they could have done a way better job because there are so many wasted reps on his tape from an evaluation standpoint. But it's going to be an incredibly difficult evaluation. I mean, I like Sonny Styles over Arvell Reese is probably now a consensus among people that pay attention to the draft, but maybe the NFL community that just like barely pays attention, would still assume that Reese is going to be the top Ohio State linebacker selected. I think it's pretty clear that Sonny Styles will be the first one off the board.
Yeah, I tend to agree with that as well. And again, Sonny Styles was my number one player on my board at that my big board drop a couple weeks ago. So I definitely agree. The traits alone, he'll get drafted really high. Like it is what it is. But what's kind of confusing though is like there were parts of Ohio State's schedule that made a lot of sense. Like, yeah, this is exactly what Arvell Reese needs to be doing when they're playing quarterbacks like Arch Manning and they're playing quarterbacks like Bryce Underwood, where it's like, yes, you want an explosive athlete spying and triggering. Like that makes a ton of sense. They played Carson Beck,
Right.
and he's still doing the same thing. They played Fernando Mendoza a couple weeks ago, and Mendoza can run enough, but he's not like a mobile quarterback, and he's still doing the same thing. So it's like, okay, this isn't a week by week game plan thing. This is just like what they ask him to do on every week. So that's a little fascinating to me.
It's just like the usage though has kind of degraded over the course of the season. Like it feels like his zone coverage responsibilities were a lot more in depth, in the Illinois game than it has been the last few weeks. So yeah, that'll be a tough one.
Yeah. then just looking a little bit ahead here, we hit like the mid-season point, and everybody's like Julian Sain's going first overall next year. Like almost in pen, people were saying it, and I, like, kept trying to, like, quietly push back because Ohio State fans on social media are as ruthless as they get. They will dox you if they don't like you. So, like, you gotta kinda ease into some conversations like that. So, like, just, like, gently kinda saying and I freelanced a piece for a good buddy of mine, Ryan, who runs Meet at Midfield, and, because he asked me to do a film room on saying, I was like, "Yeah, I will, but just know that, like, your audience probably isn't gonna, appreciate it the way that" I don't know, but, like, just trying to, like, gently nudge it, like, this guy can be a really good college quarterback. I comped him to Aaron Murray, who is the SEC's leading passer in the history of the SEC. Like, I was like, this guy to me feels like an Aaron Murray type player who's going to be a really good college quarterback, but Aaron Murray went in the 5th round because there is no evident trait to elevate the guys around him. And that's I think who Julian Sayin is. So even before we get into summer scouting here, I just like again gently nudging it's like let's halt the brakes. And I'm even to the point now. It's like Ohio State has a redshirt freshman who like can they afford to let that kid transfer out if they give Sayin more like much more time. Like that's the kind of place that I'm kind of sitting with him now. Like this is a Justin From like a Jake From
Jake
Justin
Fromm.
Field. Yeah, like a Jake From Justin Field situation to me now for that.
So it's interesting because Ty Simpson and Julian Sayin are in similar situations. Obviously, Ty
Mhm.
Simpson's older. Out of those two, how many do you think are back at their current school next year?
Well, what's really interesting is the spring portal's gone. So,
Right.
like, if the spring portal is still a thing, like, yeah, you could have a competition and then whoever loses it can still portal out. That's not the case anymore. Like Joe Burrow was a spring portal guy when he lost the job to Dwayne Haskins. Like now that there's no spring portal, like you either like Ohio, like these teams have to decide now, like if there's a competition or not. And if Ohio State tells Julian saying, "Hey, man, like you got to earn the job," there's a chance that he could just jump in the portal tomorrow. Same with Ty Simpson. Like if Ty Simpson says, "I want to come back," and they say, "Well, you got to earn it," or like, "We really don't think so," like they got to make that decision now. So that's what really complicates this.
Am I
Um,
am I correct that the transfer portal opens in 30 minutes, like, from when we're recording? It's 11:30 right now?
I think so. I'm not
Yeah.
100% sure on that. Yeah,
Okay, yeah.
but the playoff
So
teams have a little bit of a
oh, okay, that's true, I
some
forget about
leeway.
right.
Yeah. Um, the
Yeah,
coaches
from
don't. The staff doesn't, but players do.
from what I've seen, it's like I don't like I know that Tavian Sinclair is really highly rated. I don't like watch the huddle,
I don't either.
I don't know anything about
That's
the
too much.
guys, the recruits, but so it'll depend how they view him. I personally am not too excited about Julian Sand as a NFL draft prospect, but like we saw Mac Jones be the most efficient quarterback in college football. Like I think that I still think with another year of seasoning that and you put them in a high powered offense with receivers, like I don't I don't know necessarily that they should be rushing to get off of him, but that completely depends on how they view Sinclair.
Right. I think the larger issue that with saying is there were really 4 games that Ohio State had to play within 2 scores, and he
Right.
looked pretty
That's
rough in all
yeah,
4
that
of
is
them.
true.
Like the Texas
Yeah.
game, which was his first career start, so, like, you can kind of throw the Texas game out, even though that's one of those 4 games. The Washington game, which they ended up winning by 2 scores, 3 scores maybe, but, like, for most of that game, that was a pretty tight game, pretty brutal. Indiana, and now this game too against Miami. So, like, that's the only thing that, like, from an evaluative standpoint, it's like they have their work cut out for them to figure out what they're gonna do, and pretty quick. They gotta figure it out quick. Yeah, so that's probably enough on the Ohio State Miami game.
Do you think one do you think Kenyatta Jackson back to school?
I think he declares. There's so like just from the Ohio like people within like I live in Columbus and I talk to a lot of people who know a lot of things about Ohio State football and just like I think he declares.
Yeah.
I do.
It
He
seems
had
like so many of the
4 pressures in this game.
50-50 guys have been choosing to declare this year
Yeah.
compared to other years.
And he's already a 4th year, and I think that his tools are good enough that somebody would draft him day 2, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think he declares. All right. Oregon, Texas Tech. So this one, Texas Tech's offense decided they didn't want to show up, or Baron Morton, more specifically, decided that he didn't want to show up. So pretty ugly quarterbacking from Texas Tech in this game. But from an Oregon perspective, it started out looking nice for Dante Moore. It felt like one, I wasn't a huge advocate of the second half play calling from Will Stein. It kind of felt like his mind might have been on Lexington a little bit already. But the interception was bad from Dante Moore. And again, like my biggest hang up with Dante Moore this entire process, and I'm like still in the boat that like this is a top 5 pick. If he declares this is a top 5 pick, he's gonna go top 5. Anytime that he's been sped up or had to respond to pressure, it doesn't look fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah. It's a huge concern. It's a big concern. The rest of the stuff around him, like every other part of his game, I love. If that were something that he stood in the face of pressure, he threw darts, like, yeah, go first overall. Let's talk about it. But that holds me back a little bit.
Yeah, I think I have similar primary concerns about Moore and Mendoza. Different, specifics with both of them in terms of their response to pressure, but like I think with Mendoza, sometimes just the peripheral vision and sensing threats from the edges can kind of be slow, and I think more like sometimes it's if he's not if the coverage isn't what he's expecting pre-snap, then he'll take an extra second where he's like, "Oh shoot, I diagnosed it wrong," and then he'll kind of like freeze in the pocket. So yeah, it was a concerning game. I want to watch. It was a concerning game from the pressure response standpoint. I want to watch the rest of his tape though from this game to really give a full eval there. To me, it was just like, how low does Isaiah World's draft grade need
Dude,
to go? I mean,
he could legitimately be speed running a UDFA track right now.
yeah, it's
Like,
like
real bad.
he could not block anyone in front of him in this game. The grades back that up. I mean, I was trying to watch Bailey and Height primarily, and I mean Alex Harkey. It was not even a competition, but yeah, the Texas Tech defense, I think, put up a winning effort. The underclassman linebacker, not Jacob Rodriguez, Ben Roberts, he's had 2 back-to-back awesome games. So yeah, a wasted, like all-time, not all-time, but very elite defense that was wasted by just a putrid offensive performance.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. But the second half for Oregon, it did feel like they kind of knew that um the Texas Tech offense wasn't capable of really doing anything. And it did feel like the entire second half was just like RPO, RPO, run, run, RPO, run. Like there were a
Yeah.
few third, and he did throw that interception in the second half.
Well, I
But for
mean,
the
the
most
defense
part,
was on the field for so long.
yeah, it kind of just felt like they were okay with chunking out portions of the clock and then punting from the 40, like from inside the 40s. Like it just felt like that was their second half game plan. They felt pretty okay with it. Um, so anything else from this game? Again, I want to talk about Jamari Johnson a little bit. Again, I don't know if he declares. I think the odds are increasing every week because he's out producing Kenyon Sadiq, and he looks like I am the highest of anybody that I know on Jamari Johnson in the industry, and I still might think I might be too low, and he's like 35 on my board, somewhere like in the mid 30s on my board. The dude's awesome. I love him, man. Again, he probably goes back, but there's like a part of me in the back of my head's like, please declare. I want to talk about you more.
Yeah, I know I saw Mike had him in his top 50, but
Okay.
I'm with you. I think tight end 2 for sure if he declares.
Yeah. Fun player. Fun player. And then
Lee Hunter.
Yeah, we got to shout out Lee Hunter, man. 7 stop tackles in this game. He is the funniest constructed player in the class, I think, from my perspective, where he has this like beer belly that just like hangs out over his jersey, but the dude is ungodly explosive off the ball. It's like when you play pickup basketball with your uncle and you're like, and he crosses you over, and you're like, where did that come from? It's kind of the sneaky athleticism that Lee Hunter has because again, he'll fire off that ball and he'll pop straight through your chest. Really fun player, man. Really fun player.
Yeah, it's like Uncle Drew, Kyrie
Yeah.
Irving. But yeah. I mean, I think that he is probably the best nose tackle in this class just in terms of pass rushing instincts and hand usage. Like so many nose tackle pass rushing reps, the rep really starts like a second and a half into the play once he reads that it's not a run. And so I think he's one of the best in this class at transitioning kind of from that initial stalemate to not, swatting down the edge of the block. He's got a lot of different moves and he's really violent with that with his hands. And then just so disruptive in the run game.
We will get into some more scouting seminars in the summer when we don't have games to talk about, obviously. But I just want to throw this one briefly out there. If you are evaluating or watching a defensive tackle, please be aware of the down of distance. And if it is not an obvious pass situation, please understand is this guy a gap shooter or is he read stepping? Because that makes all the difference in the world when
Yeah.
trying to figure out what a guy's doing on if it is a pass play. Just
If
that
a
quick.
guy is ever just like really absurdly slow off the ball, it's not because he can't get off. It's because he's playing the run. He has run first responsibility.
Yeah, if it is 1st and 10 or 2nd and 6 or less, there's a good chance that he's got to play the run first, and you got to take that into consideration. Yeah. All right, let's move on. Alabama IU, which this one again, I picked IU to win, but I thought they'd win by 7. I thought they'd win by 9. They're not even 9, 5 to 7. They took belt to ass in this one to Bama and ran them out of Pasadena. An unbelievable game, an unbelievable story. I am rooting for IU to win the Natty just from a 2-year turnaround standpoint to this is an unbelievable story. And I know you're rooting for IU to win the Natty because you're an IU
It's
fan.
surreal. I mean, I still I can't even believe it. It's normally the ceiling for one of these scrappy, overachieving 3-star type of teams is you peak
Last
it,
year's outcome.
you have you have a great 10-2 season, and it's man, that was awesome. But the fact that they don't miss assignments. They've got to have. I would be interested to see. I don't have the play-by-play PFF data for the grades, but I bet they have the lowest, one of the lowest negative graded play rates, team-wise, just as far as being out of your gap or busting a coverage. And it makes up for not having spectacular measurables or elite athletes or anything. So yeah, it's really fun to watch because you get a consistent viewing experience.
Yeah, their defensive coordinator might be his last
Brian
year
Haynes.
at IU.
Yeah. He just signed an extension. I think this I would expect this next year to be his last year unless he's just one of those guys that just wants to be a DC. But he is you watch as people start to watch IU defensive tape more. I think he's going to get a lot of attention. The disguises and the fire zones and sim pressures and everything. It's pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, they're awesome. I think we've hit no, we can't say that because we haven't even hit silly season yet or the pre-draft process, but it feels like we've hit a point where we've finally hit consensus that Mendoza is quarterback 1. Or that Mendoza's locked into the top 5, I think bare minimum. That this is a guy that the NFL loves and that he deserves every ounce of it for his play this year. He was near perfect in this game. Every throw 20 yards or more down the field was dropped in a breadbasket. I've run out of words, and again, fine, it's tooting my own horn a little bit. I was going to say not to toot my own horn or blah blah blah, but it is a little bit. I dropped that article the last week of April, the Monday after the draft. I couldn't even have imagined that it would have panned out like this in 2026, the beginning of that this is outside of my conception of what is going on. So
the craziest thing about that is when you before you posted that article where you said Mendoza was QB1, which you were the first one to say it, by the way, no matter who wants to claim it. I will say
I've got timestamps.
But you tweeted out a teaser. You were I'm gonna like tell you guys the QB1 that nobody's talking about. I almost replied to it like joking because I'm an Indiana fan, like, oh, thanks for finally acknowledging Mendoza. I would have predicted it, but I hadn't watched him at the time. So but yes, I'm impressed with your foresight there.
It's been so fun to watch, man. People, I think, even undersell the arm. Again, it's not an A arm, but like people undersell his like the amount of drive that he can put on the football still, I think. But um really fun player. It's gonna be fun to watch the pre-draft process, how the interviews go, things like that too. Hoping he's at a certain all-star game that we're going to as well in Frisco in a few weeks here. And I hope, we get the opportunity to maybe chat with him a little bit. But tight end Riley Nowakowski as well deserves like every week it just feels like, oh, that guy made a play. That guy made a play. And it's always like a seam ball 15 yards down the field while getting popped, or like he's running a sit on 3rd and 5 and he's the one converting a 3rd and medium, or things like that.
Yeah.
And then his run blocking is a lot of fun too.
His run blocking tape is like he's either digging a 10-yard tunnel like through the line of scrimmage, or he's getting his ass kicked like 5 yards behind, like someone's just like corkscrewing him on the ground because he's 240 pounds. He's built like an H-back, and it's like you rarely see people with that level of blocking tenacity. I'm a little bit. I have a UDFA grade on him. I know a lot of people like him to get drafted, and it seems like he probably will. But to me, he's for a 240 pounder, he's so stiff moving laterally, like he cannot separate on routes.
Mhm.
And I think the run blocking is just too inconsistent from a success rate standpoint. Like, it's the kind of thing where I would feel weird even, posting his highlights because I feel like it's
Yeah.
misleading to what the overall tape looks like. But yeah, he's kind of the ultimate like college tight end to me. But I do really like him.
Yeah, I also wonder if he might play fullback at the NFL level.
I think that's
Yeah.
definitely that
Yeah.
some kind of hybrid role for sure.
And then we have to like again, I hate like looking like turning the page to 2027 sometimes, but there are just some guys that like just keep on like flashing and flashing. And it's like, dude, I gotta wait to watch you. And Charlie Becker is one of those guys. And the Charlie Becker stuff is crazy because like he was running cardio up until the point where until Elijah Surratt got hurt midseason. Like he was just running routes out there. He was not getting many targets a game. And the moment that Surratt got hurt, they started to give him targets, and now they can't unscript him. Like he's that good of a playmaker that like they can't stop tagging him in plays now. It's so fun to watch, and the dude can legitimately fly. And I hate to do the white receiver to white receiver comparison here, but there's a lot of similarities to Alec Pierce out of Cincinnati a couple years ago from Becker.
Yeah, 10 for 12 on contested catches, 0 drops. He's probably like, what would you say, 4.37 to 4.41?
Yeah, he could fly, dude.
6'3". You saw him run that. He routed up Keon Sabb on the post corner for like the first big completion of the game. So yeah, he's a pretty complete. Not like doesn't have enough proven production for me to say he's a complete receiver necessarily, but from the early glances of his skill set, it seems to be a versatile kind of skill set.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I think he probably is more of a vertically inclined X, but he's winning the football consistently. Just a ton of fun. And one of the first players that I'll watch this summer for sure. And that brings us to we got to talk about Ty Simpson a little bit, I guess. We got to talk about Ty Simpson a little bit. He needs to go back to school, but like he's one of those guys that has like a pigeonhole to work with in terms of what to do with his future. I feel kind of bad for the guy. I don't know if you're in that same situation, but
yeah, I don't know if I feel bad, but I do. Yeah, it's a tough situation, I guess. I think it comes down to the same thing that we talked about with Sayin versus Sinclair, where it comes down to their internal evaluation of Keelan Russell, and if they think he's ready. Again, without the spring portal, it's tough because they have to make an earlier decision on that eval. But yeah, I wonder if Ty Simpson doesn't like have, if there's maybe a Nebraska type of team that's willing to invest more than Alabama would in Ty Simpson, um, if he ends up making that decision.
Yeah. Because the way that I look at it is like he spent 3 years as a backup. Is a guy who didn't leave in 3 years really going to leave now, or is he just going to declare? Like, is he a Bama lifer?
Right, that's
From a
true.
Bama perspective, it's like you can't sit on your hands with Keelan Russell another year. Like you can't. Like you just straight up can't. I do wonder. His dad is the head coach of a UT branch school, so like
Right.
there are UT connections in Tennessee. Like Joey Aguilar is probably not going to get a waiver. So I do wonder if like UT would be a decent fit for Ty Simpson there as well.
Could be.
So something to keep an eye on there as well. But moving on to then the last game, the most fun game, man, Ole Miss Georgia. Again, in my preview, this took up like a tenth of the time, despite being like a quarter of the games. Just because there isn't again a lot of NFL draft like high level NFL draft prospects on display in this game. What I will say is guys who are perceived as day 3 players kind of showed up in this game, at least for Ole Miss. If you listen to today's or yesterday's episode, where Sam Teets and I kind of did a Dafter draft, and he had a Dafter draft that Eric McAllister would be the most productive day 3 wide receiver. And I pushed back and I said, like, there's just something about Dazon Stribling that just tells me that like teams are going to find a way to get this guy the ball. And then he put up 7 for 122 today, including the pretty much the icing on the cake for Ole Miss, catching that seam ball down the sideline to get them in field goal territory for that game winner. But then I think we got to talk a lot about Trinidad Chambliss too. And if this is the quarterback that people fall in love with in the All-Star circuit and the pre-draft circuit, and he's playing himself into some pretty fun territory.
I think he will be the quarterback that people fall in love with, for sure. It'll go down a little bit at the combine when the official measurement comes in. But yeah, Trevor Sikkema tweeted that he was soft launching the Trinidad Chambliss QB3. I think I'm like intrigued with it. I don't know if I still don't know if I'm there with the height, but do need to finish up his tape. And I mean, the performance tonight was outstanding. Heisman caliber. He should have gotten a Heisman invite.
Yeah, he's so much fun, dude.
Yeah.
They got a little lucky that Austin Simmons got hurt. Ole Miss did. This has been a lot of fun for them, and I know he's applying for a waiver. I think he wants to go back another year. He's applying for a waiver because he spent most of his eligibility at the D2 level. Again, this is not only his first season at the FBS level, but his first season at the Division 1 level. So
Yeah.
like that, it's a crazy story. But he's a lot of fun. And he's going to be a priority watch for me this week. I'm going to catch up on all of his charts this week. And get that out and updated on into the Google Drive for paid subscribers there as well. And probably I'm going to do a live charting video on him probably tomorrow as well. Like he'll be the quarterback this week that I choose to do. Anything else from this Ole Miss Georgia game you want to talk about?
I'm sure I'll have stuff after I get into the tape, but this was kind of a watch the ball game, honestly.
Yeah.
With Trinidad Chambliss, I mean, just watching him run around. So I wasn't paying too much attention to Monroe Freeling.
Yeah, me either.
So yeah, I will get back to you on that next week for sure.
Offensive linemen are hard to really figure out what's going on, unless it's like they're like obviously a sore thumb,
right?
Like the Oregon tackles were, but like
Yeah,
if they're not an obvious sore thumb, you don't really get a chance to really see. Like the same way with Caden Proctor against Indiana. Like we got to go back and we got to check that stuff out. But we wanted to do a nice like instant reaction, fire from the hip. This is what we saw. This is what we thought from this playoff game. So, James, you've been out all week, man. Do you got anything for the people?
I've got a lot for the people, but I will save it for next week. Actually, like watched a lot of tape before I got sick, and so I've got some takes, but I'll keep them loaded.
I love it. And again, Shrine is coming up. January 22nd is the day I'm leaving. So the 23rd is the first day of practice, I think. And there's some media stuff there. And media is really available for us that the players are. So James and I have some cool content planned. We hope to get that going soon too. From our time at Shrine, I just loaded up on a GoPro and a bunch of equipment to make sure that the experience is going to be worthwhile from a media perspective. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. 2025 was a hit year for the Daft on Draft podcast and the growth of the podcast. And 2026 holds bigger things. But and until next time, this has been another episode of the Daft on Draft podcast. See ya.